According to Ipsos polling done exclusively for Global News, only 2 in 10 feel that no new spending on healthcare is a positive development, and just 2 in 5 feel positively about the continuation of the carbon tax, GST, and the gas tax. Canadians were pleased with some new investments to support summer jobs and interest-free loans for students, along with enhancing the Canada Workers Benefit and speeding up approval for natural resource and energy projects.
What we found when we asked Canadians about Minister Freeland's economic update was that basically they want it all. They want all sorts of spending on various programs. They'd like to see some tax cuts, and they'd also like to see some increase in taxes on people who are, they believe, making too much money at the current time. So any windfall taxes that might exist for some companies out there, but they basically want it all. What they saw in the statement wasn't quite all. So while they supported many of the things that were in there that were related to job creation and investment in workers and investment in people, they felt that the economic statement really didn't deal with healthcare. They found that to be the biggest disappointment. And they also believe that there should have been something said about reducing the burden of taxes on things, for example, like carbon or gas taxes at the moment, because of obviously they're feeling the pinch of inflation. So happy with what they saw in terms of investing in people and workers, not so happy with what they saw in terms of no relief in terms of taxes, and really no meaningful investment in their view in healthcare. Definitely Canadians are not happy that there hasn't been any effort to get back at the deficit. But if you look at this in terms of weight of priorities right now, they believe that the government should at least be signaling an intention to deal with the current deficit level in Canada, and they didn't feel that that came through in the economic statement. But if you put that up against spending on people or in investing in jobs, for example, like was put forward in the statement, that they would probably have more support for those kinds of things. But that issue of debt and deficit is definitely working in the back of their minds. Well, it's really interesting. Just about anything that comes out of Ottawa these days is very much defined by how people supported the government in the election campaign. So it follows the political map. So just about anything that you would see as even positive in the economic statement, people in British Columbia, Quebec, Atlantic Canada, maybe parts of Ontario would tend to see it relatively positively. But the minute that you get between British Columbia and Ontario and you start focusing on the three provinces in the middle, that's when things really, even things that are positive are not necessarily seen in the same positive light. Men tended to be on anything that related to, say, for example, tax reductions or paying attention to the deficit or the debt. They tended to be a little bit more anxious about that. Women seem to be more supportive of doing things, for example, like spending in healthcare. But the big thing that we see here is the generational aspect. And that's that younger people are really more supportive of this idea of spending on people and economic activity right now. Not so concerned about healthcare, obviously, because they're not using it as much as older Canadians are, and not necessarily, and less worried about the consequences of increasing the debt and the deficit. So you have a bit of a generational divide as well. Well, it's one of those situations in which people are really not in the mood of making hard choices at the moment. So they basically want everything. So they want to see increased investment in people and various economic activities in the country. But at the same time, they want to see tax reductions. Well, you can't really have both. And they also want to see action on the debt and the deficit. Well, you've got those three things trying to interact in which basically they contradict each other. So, you can increase government spending, but it's obviously going to require taxes to pay for it or an increase in the deficit and the debt. And Canadians aren't making that calculation and not making that balance at the moment. But I would say that on balance, what we're seeing in the data at the moment is that Canadians are prepared to put aside longer term issues and are really more focused at the moment on dealing with the immediate circumstances related to their economic anxiety. And that means investing in people and investing in jobs.